Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So here I want to cover my solo damage builds for Paladin. I'm going to have one for AoE and one for single target, as we want to change up a few gear options to optimize. So first of all, do not use this build in party content where you're required to play as a healer or a tank. If you queue up to a dungeon or advanced dungeon or a trial, you're expected to fulfill your role of which you queue up to. If I queue up to a tank, I'm there to absorb all the damage and the hits and to make sure the enemies are attacking me. And if I'm running this build, you're probably going to die as your offensive stats are pretty abysmal. If you're queuing up for a healer, make sure you're keeping everybody healed. So this build will be primarily for solo content, of which, yes, there is quite a lot in this game. All of these adventures and campaigns, etc., including the latest one, the Demon Web Hits. So let's jump into a showcase of how these builds can perform. First of all, AoE, beating up groups of enemies. With this build, you're not going to have any trouble at all. You can pretty much one-shot them. Move to the next group, again, pretty much one-shotting them all. Got some more tanky dudes, maybe I want to use my mount power there, and they're all dead. Go to the next group here. Just make sure you gotta aim a little bit, maybe you have to do it a second time, and everything's dead. Let's do a final demonstration over here. One Bane, everything's pretty much dead, and you just finish off any dude who maybe deflected and you maybe didn't crit on. So this build, yeah, you're not gonna have any trouble in this new zone. This being the latest zone, so everything has like the most hit points compared to any other zone you could be going into. The monsters here have the highest item level. So now we move to our single target loadout. Few things changed there, but this one is primarily for your hunts. So in this new zone, along with Menza Branson, you have these Byssal Hunts, which, yeah, you could party up with people, but that means spending time trying to find people, and it could just be easier to go in solo. In these hunts, you gotta do about 8 million damage. God help you if you get the T-Rex. And so we enter in here, attack our enemy a little bit, make sure our Scorpion's activated, and there we go. We can use our mount, our daily power, and some smites, and we can kill this guy within, 15 seconds or so. Pretty easy. And that's your hunt complete. Yeah, about 8 million damage. Let me go to our next hunt. Again, we can start with our artifact, sacred weapon, get some hits in, and then make sure we have combat advantage, use a smite, use our daily and mount, relentless avenger, block that, do some more smites here. We can use our dragon fire. More smites, and we'll just keep smiting because he's nearly dead anyway. Just be aware that the more smites you do, the less damage each one will do, because it will scale based on how much divinity you have left. You can read the tooltip. But that's that hunt done. Again, over 8.3 million for the Manticore there. Let's showcase our third one here. Go artifact, sacred weapon. Do some attacks with that. We can use our dragon fire, relentless avenger. We can use our daily and our mount and some smites, and the beholder is dead. Yup, that's how easy it is. You can get through these hunts just as pretty much quickly as any DPS. So let's cover these builds and how they are set up and what you want to be using. Again, this is for endgame players, min-max everything, what you want to be getting towards. So first of all, that AoE setup, killing groups of enemies. We start with our powers, and this is what you generally use. However, you can switch a few things if you want. For example, instead of having Burning Light, you could have Sacred Weapon, or even instead of having Relentless Avenger, you could have Sacred Weapon. And I would recommend that if you can't, let's say, one-shot the ads. I can pretty much one-shot the ads, as you saw, with Bane. That's 620 magnitude, and if they aren't one shot from that, let's say they deflected or I didn't crit or something, then you can follow up with a Burning Light or just a second Bane, and they're all dead. And if there's one particularly tanky guy, you Relentless Avenger them, or you even use Relentless Avenger to initiate the fight when you're getting into the group of enemies. So just be aware of those powers, and you can switch depending on what you're up against and how long the fights take for you. The longer the fight is, the more valuable Sacred Weapon is. Daily powers, I usually don't use Radiant Charge. It just takes too long to cast, and so it's not really worth it. So we just use Divine Judgment. Save that for when there's one particular tanky enemy or he's the last guy left. You can just Divine Judgment and kill him. Class features, of course, you want the 20% here when you're solo, and then you want like composure for the divinity regen. However, if you're really like in burst and don't have your crit really high, you could take Aura of Wrath instead, and we get that 90% crit rate. And the feats, I just go with this setup. However, you could take the Burning Vengeance one instead, especially if, again, you're just killing enemies really quickly and moving on to the next. But if the fight lasts a little bit longer, then Baneful Strikes can be helpful to get some extra free casts of that. And then we just go with this feat for the extra divinity regen, and the rest don't really matter here. So we move to the gear. This is what I'm currently using. This headpiece from the Demon Web Pits. You can check the campaign. This armor piece from your North Dark Reaches, upgraded with Menza Branson. It's very nice. You get the damage bonus when the enemies are facing you, and if you're solo, then they are of course facing you. And this arms piece from Master Demon Web Pits with the crit strike. An alternative would be this one here, the Abyss one, to give us power. It again depends what content you're in. If you're in fights which are going to last particularly long, let's say you're soloing heroics, then it could be more helpful to have the extra power there. We got the perfect weapons just because they got that really high item level, the extra base damage. They give a 3% damage bonus to us. It doesn't have roll dependency like Stormforged. And the longer you are in the fight, you'll gain some extra stats because of crit strike and crit severity. Not that we really need it. And then we have the boots, which are these sharp ones, reducing our critical avoidance and increasing our damage by 5%. The reason the reducing our critical avoidance is actually good is because the Pegasus mount power. It has, despite what it says on the tooltip, 1800 magnitude, and that is scaled with your stats. However, if you critically hit, then that critical hit damage is also reduced by your critical avoidance. A bit stupid, but if we reduce our critical avoidance, that means this becomes the highest damaging AoE power there is, and so we use that with those boots. And then we have the Marilith set here, just because there's not a lot of other great sets, and this will help. If you're in combat for any period of time, you get some of these stacks on the enemy, they'll take increased damage. Particularly helps in single target. You could maybe run the Lost Mouth set in AoE instead of this. That could work pretty well, and I would if you're on the budget side. We got the Platinum Ring here for the accuracy, the Sapphire Ring for the encounter power damage. We got this shirt for the extra 3% damage when our stamina is over a certain amount, and then the trouser for the power. So then with the quick modifications, the armor kits, we got some accuracy there, some power, defense because my ratings are capped anyway, and we got some power there. And then just combat advantage here on all these pieces, of course. So with the enchantments, you can see what we're using here. We've got 3 Jades and a Garnet. Again, not focusing on combat advantage at all. Defense doesn't matter. Utility, I wonder why we have a Jade there. We should have, yes, a Garnet would be better for the crit strike. That was my mistake. And then overloads, yeah, you probably don't want to run overloads at all anyway. And you can get rid of the Devil's Precision, that's not a problem. You'll get the crit chance up with Lightning Flash very quick. And then you'll also get some more from these weapons if the fight goes on for a duration, so that's not a big deal. But again, we're trying to one-shot things, so if you're really trying to push that, you want to have maxed crit strike right on that very first hit, so we get that there. You can of course initiate the fight with, let's say, a Radiant Slam or Relentless Avenger, and that would give you a stack of the Lightning Flash, and so you don't exactly need that capped out when you stand still. We just have the movement speed here because I prefer it. And then artifacts. At primary, totally envenomed for AoE. You get the action point gain, and it also does a lot of damage. Alternatively, if you just want one for damage, I recommend the Dragonbone Blades or the Wyvern Blades. They'll deal probably the most damage of any artifact, and it's a bit of AoE and also makes the target take increased damage and reduces their damage. Secondary artifacts, whatever, just take high item level with offense stats. So with race and ability scores, I'm Azamar because I'm trying to play a tank and a healer here mainly. And I'm not going to switch my race just for a damage build. But otherwise, you take like a DPS would. Wood Elf, Half Orc, Gith, Dragonborn. All of those got bonuses to these offense stats, which will help you out. Even human will be good. Ability scores, dexterity and intelligence. They'll help you the most with the damage. So for our companions here, we got the Justicar Witch for AoE damage. She'll help out probably the most. Otherwise, take like Drids to give you the damage bonus. It'll be fine. Or you'll run the Minotaur or Regis or some other AoE damage companion you have at your disposal. It won't do a lot. If you're just one-shotting things, they won't even have time to react. We just got some offensive equipment here to give us some stats there. You can see like crit strike, outgoing healing, crit strike, accuracy, and crit severity. We got potency, baby deep crow, the knight, the phase spider, Drizzt, and the alpha compy. Then for the mounts here, we got the Pegasus as you've seen. We got dominant force for the power. In the stable, we just got a bunch of 4-slot mounts here, and we're mainly trying to get the ones that give us offensive stats like Menders here and Executioners. We even got a second Menders. Shepherd's Devotion is whatever, I just have it there for the insignia slots. And then Warlords to increase our companions damage. You could have a Gladiators here instead. And the collars, we got the encounter power damage one and the crit severity. The rest don't matter, but I'd take the movement speed one here. And boons, of course, you're just taking all the offensive ones like power here, then all the power here, all the offensive stats here, all the damage against enemy types, movement speed, lingering medicine, and all these potion ones here to just boost up the potion a bit. Some gold gain, because why not? Some forte, recharge speed, and bloodlust. If you want to try hard again your damage, you can use some consumables: Wildstorm Elixir, Flask of Potency, Squash Soup, and Ratatouille. And the belt items are Forger's Box, Dragonfire, and yeah, a potion to help a bit with the healing. So when I do go to my single target setup, then a few things change. First of all, the powers. You want to be using your Shielding Strike here as your at-will, the most damage, the lowest cast time. Then we have our Sacred Weapon, Smite, and Relentless Avenger. You can use them like I do. Now, what you want to do is have Sacred Weapon casted at the start in order to get these arms triggered, giving the extra 10% power, along with also getting your Mythic Lightning Flash triggered and your like armor break triggered. Just be aware of Smite. If the fight's going to last for any length of duration, don't just keep spamming Smite when you just about get the divinity to do so. Save up the divinity and cast Smite when you're near full divinity. That will overall give you a lot more damage, and only start using all the divinity when you know you're going to kill your enemy, because again, the damage reduces based on your remaining divinity. So when your divinity is low, the damage of Smite is really low as well. Daily power, Divine Judgment of course, and we're combining it with the headpiece here with the Manticore Bite to deal damage of 50% of our hit points when they hit us. Class features, again it's the same for the damage here, and feats it's the same. For the gear, we have changed this helmet to the rugged one, these arms here, these boots, and then these two rings. We have the combat advantage from this one and the damage from this one. Just by animation cancelling with your shield, you're going to trigger the repulsion ring, so that's why again you'll wait just a few seconds in the start of the fight before unloading all your damage. And we also have then this shirt for the combat advantage. We are focusing combat advantage a little bit more in single target because we can get that with our companion. For the modifications, we got a crit strike here, a power, crit severity, and a power. And then it's just the same combat advantage all here. Enchantments changed a little bit. We got 2 amethysts, a garnet, and a cobalt. Within a garnet here. Those overloads again, Mythic Lightning Flash, recharge speed, because you aren't going to move that much, but again you could have movement speed there instead. And the artifacts just stay the same as well. Just be aware you need the tails for the envenomed. You can't just buy this from the auction house without the tails and make any use of it. It'll be utterly useless without the tails. Again, for the companions, I'm using a Black Death Scorpion for the reliable combat advantage against the target. Same companion equipment. This time we have armor break here. We have Minsk and the Batiri, switching out what we had there on the AoE build. And for mounts, you want to have that single target one here. And the stable doesn't really change here at all. Boons are also the same, with then the buff food also the same. And you end up with pretty decent stats, all things considered, you're getting a power up with 10% with this. You'll get your crit strike up with the lightning flash and also the perfect weapons. Again, you should really not have any trouble with just killing these hunt dudes. Again, make sure to get a few hits in with that sacred weapon to get those procs, and then unload like your daily, your mount, and then a bunch of smites with Relentless Avenger. And when he's low enough hit points and you know you can just finish him off with those smites, then go ahead and do so, dumping all of your divinity, but then a Relentless Avenger here, and we should have finished him. There we go. Can go smoother, can take a bit longer depending on crits and deflects, etc. on those big hits like your mount and your daily. And sometimes you might not even have your daily power, so yeah, slightly longer again. But even on a DPS character, you can't expect things to go much smoother than that. So hopefully this helps some of you out there. Just keep in mind it can be very expensive to build in this direction, as it doesn't exactly help healing and it doesn't exactly help tanking. And those are your two primary roles that you want to be fulfilling in endgame content. And getting a maxed out build like this, I think, would be your last priority for a Paladin. It's not something you want to head towards when you're still struggling with a budget to try and get your other loadouts set up for healing and tanking. But hopefully, at least having the correct power setup will help you guys out for that single target and again, that AoE setup. If you are just trying to make a budget build for solo questing and such, well, focus on the stats that are going to give you damage. So that's power, crit severity, critical strike, and accuracy in that kind of order. And then combat advantage last, but keep in mind to get some damage buffs as well if they're more helpful to you, like this encounter power damage one, these boots, this armor, etc. There's loads of gear in this game, absolutely tons. You just want to focus on ones that are going to give you damage if you want to be creating a damage build, of course. So again, focus those stats and those damage buffs. Maybe I make a budget build that you can spend a very limited amount and improve your damage overall on a Paladin. And now, many of you might ask me the question of why do I run Justicar instead of Oathkeeper for my DPS path? Is Oathkeeper not that little bit better? And you might be right, because healers gain a 10% base damage bonus off their item level, versus a tank which does not. But that would really be the only reason why to go for it. I find the healer setup a little bit worse than the tank setup for damage. Because on the tank path, you have Relentless Avenger, you have Baneful Strikes, you have an AoE at will, Oath Strike, you have Divine Pursuit, the option to take Burning Light with Burning Vengeance, and your daily power combined with your Manticore Bite is going to deal more damage because you're going to have more hit points. And ultimately, you'll have more survivability on the tank path. Because, again, you'll be dumping all your divinity resource to deal damage, so you don't really have the argument of, oh, you can heal yourself on the Oathkeeper. Because with Justicar, you get base extra defense through the Forte, thus survivability. But that's my take on it. You may have your own arguments and feel free to leave them down below. I personally have done testing. I've done many of those Byssal Hunts on both Oathkeeper and Justicar, and overall I found Justicar to just be that bit easier, specifically for Relentless Avenger. And on a last note, you may be wondering, should you run Mirage Weapons instead of the Perfect Weapons? And I would say no. If you have the Perfect Weapons, use them. If you don't have the Perfect Weapons, then yes, you could take the Mirage Weapons. But the damage they deal is very minuscule. I'll get maybe 300,000 to 400,000 damage in the 10 seconds from the Mirage Weapons. Have a look. I have to deal 8 million damage. So that 300 to 400,000 is very small. That is why just having the Perfect Weapons to increase your overall item level, which increases all your damage, which increases your bigger hits, results in more damage to everything and a faster run through the content. And of course in AoE it's a no-brainer. You want to be having the ability to one-shot the enemies versus having these clones spawning, which then just don't do much. Mirage Weapons are only really good when you're actually running tough content that's got high item level. So in particular, Semblance Reliquary Master, Demon Web Pits Master, Templar the Spider Master. They all have high item level ratings, and that is where Mirage does good. But you're gonna want to be running a tank or a healer in that, not as a damage dealer, because your damage will kind of pale compared to an actual well-built damage dealer. Although perhaps I do want to, for the memes of it, run with maybe 5 paladins on DPS, maybe 1 as tank and the other 4 as DPS, and run some master content, see how well it goes. So thanks for watching, and a special thank you to all these channel members for their extra support. We'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.